I want you to close your eyes for a second. Well, don't close your eyes if you're driving. But if you aren't, close them and picture the word waiting. What is the first image that hits your brain?
Ideally, it's not something stressful, but knowing how our brains work.
Exactly. I'm betting most of you are picturing the DMV or standing in a line at the grocery store that isn't moving.
Or the spinning wheel on a computer.
Oh, my personal favorite, the spinning wheel of death when the Wi-Fi cuts out.
The universal symbol of frustration.
Right. We are conditioned to think of waiting as a pause button. It's the gap between where you are and where you want to be. It's passive, it's boring, and frankly, it's the stuff you just have to grit your teeth and get through.
It's dead time.
It's dead time. But today, we are going to take that definition, put it in a shredder, and look at something completely different. We are diving into a philosophical essay called Waiting by the writer and philosopher Pedro Malha. And I have to be honest with you, this piece sort of haunted me after I read it.
It definitely sticks with you.
Because Malha argues that for parents, or really anyone in a deep caregiving role, waiting isn't a pause at all. It isn't passive. And it certainly isn't dead time.
No. His argument is that waiting is actually the hidden engine of parenting. It is active, it is physically exhausting, and it is the fundamental architecture of how we experience love.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We want to name this invisible labor. We want to figure out why this specific type of, doing nothing makes you feel so bone tired at the end of the day.
How it actually warps your perception of time.
And why recognizing it might be the only way to make peace with the anxiety of caring for someone.
It's a heavy topic, but I think it's a necessary one, because if you don't name it, you can't really understand your own life.
So let's get into it. Malha starts us off by stripping away that traditional idea of waiting, the DMV, the bus stop. How is parental waiting fundamentally different from, say, waiting for a latte?
Well, the first thing he points out is that standard waiting is an event. It's finite. You wait for the bus comes, the waiting ends.
There's a resolution.
Exactly. You get the coffee, you get the driver's license. But Malha says waiting, in the context of parenting, is not an event, it's a condition.
A condition?
Yes. It doesn't have a start date or an end date. You don't get a calendar invite saying, waiting period begins now, ends at 5:00 p.m.
Right. You don't clock out.
Precisely. Malha describes it as something that just settles quietly into the daily routine. It shapes time from the inside out. And the tricky part is that parents often only recognize it when they're already drowning in it.
It's stealthy.
It is. It's not dramatic like waiting for a bomb to go off in a movie.
The imagery he uses here is so evocative. He talks about waiting while standing in a doorway, just listening for footsteps.
Or watching a phone on a table, just knowing it might ring.
And this one really got me, sitting in a darkened room late at night, long after a child has fallen asleep. You're just sitting there, but you're alert. You're listening for any sound that might signal a need.
Mm-hmm. It happens during ordinary mornings and unremarkable evenings.
And that brings us to the core difference. Malha insists this is not idleness.
Which is a huge distinction.
Yeah, because to an outsider, if I'm sitting on the sofa while my kid is asleep, it looks like I'm doing nothing. It looks like leisure.
Exactly. But internally, it is a form of attention that never fully switches off. It's a split in your consciousness.
And unlike waiting for a test result, which resolves.
Right. You get the email, it's over. But parenting, waiting, it just repeats. It has no endpoint. One thing passes and another takes its place immediately.
It's like a relay race where you just keep passing the baton to yourself.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
In a way, yes.
Okay.
And Malha makes a really fascinating point here about posture. He writes that the object of your concern changes, but the stance, the physical and mental posture of waiting remains exactly the same.
I loved that part. Let's unpack that posture idea, because obviously what you worry about changes.
Of course, in the early hours, with an infant, the waiting is visceral. You're listening to breathing patterns. It's very immediate.
Then you flash forward. You're waiting for them to come home safely from school in the afternoon.
And then, flash forward again. It's late at night, and you're waiting for the sound of a key in the door. Or just a text message.
I'm safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The content, the what, is totally different. But the how, that tightness in your chest, that split attention, that suspension of your own needs, it's identical. And Malha argues that this posture creates a sort of time warp.
This was the part of the essay that felt a bit trippy to me. He says this waiting reshapes time.
It does. For a parent, The present moment isn't just experienced for what it is. It becomes, in Mullah's words, a container for what might come next.
A container for the future.
Yes, the future presses into the present, but not in a fun, ambitious, five-year plan kind of way. It presses in as vigilance.
He also writes that even joyful moments are edged with this waiting.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you're laughing with your kid, having a great time, maybe playing in the park. But then there's that split-second glance, a quiet check.
Is everything still fine? Is everyone safe?
Yeah.
It becomes the background rhythm against which everything else takes place. You can't fully lose yourself in the moment because a part of you is always monitoring the perimeter.
Okay, so I have to play devil's advocate here, because I can hear some listeners thinking, okay, this just sounds like anxiety. Is this just neurosis? Are we just describing being a control freak?
It's a fair question. Is it just us being crazy? But Mala argues there is a deep intelligence to it. It's not just anxiety. He says waiting develops because a child cannot yet hold the weight of their own vulnerability.
Hold the weight of their own vulnerability. That is a powerful phrase.
Think about it. A toddler doesn't know that gravity hurts. A teenager doesn't fully grasp that a car accident is permanent. They can't.
They're just living.
They're just living. So someone else must hold that weight.
So the parent waits so the child doesn't have to.
Precisely. The waiting absorbs the uncertainty, the risk, the unknown. It is a buffer.
It's like we are outsourcing their survival instinct to our own nervous systems until they can develop their own.
That is a perfect way to describe it. It's protection that works through time rather than action. By remaining available, by holding that space, you create a buffer between the child and the world.
Which explains why it is so incredibly exhausting. I mean, you hear parents say, I didn't do anything today, I just watched the baby play. Why do I feel like I ran a marathon?
And here is the answer. Mala notes that waiting draws from the same energy reserves as being busy. Your body stays slightly braced.
You're never fully at zero.
Never. Mala has this devastating line. Even rest is shallow when waiting is active, because true rest requires a letting go that waiting does not allow.
And then he says, and this is the one I underlined twice, a parent may sit down.
But part of them remains standing.
Ugh. That's the crucial insight. You can physically sit in a chair, you can look relaxed, but if your ears are pricked for a cry or your mind is calculating where your teenager is, you are not resting.
You are working. You are performing the labor of waiting.
It's a labor that has a bit of a shadow side, though, doesn't it? Mala touches on the fear component.
Yes, but he clarifies that it rarely feels like panic. It's not high-drama fear. He calls it a low-level hum.
Like background static. You almost tune it out, but it's always there.
And it organizes what you notice. You find yourself scanning faces for distress, listening for sounds in the quiet of the morning, replaying conversations in your head.
Looking for clues that you missed something.
Right. And the problem is, because this waiting is invisible, it just disappears into normality. We think, oh, this is just what life is now. We don't realize we are carrying this heavy, invisible backpack.
And that invisibility creates strain. Mala talks about how this constant orientation toward what might go wrong actually narrows the mind. It makes it hard to be fully present.
And this spills over into relationships. I think this is where a lot of listeners might have an aha moment.
Definitely.
Think about the friction that happens. A parent might look distracted or tense. To an outsider, or even a spouse, it looks like they're uninterested or irritable.
Why are you so grumpy? We're just sitting here.
Exactly. But Botha points out that they are simply monitoring a situation others cannot see. Without a word for waiting, this labor is often mistaken for a personal shortcoming, impatience, moodiness, lack of focus.
When really they are just deep in the work. They are holding up the sky, but nobody else sees the sky falling.
Correct.
There's a term Mala uses that I think is really useful here, but it's a bit dense. He talks about temporal honesty. Can you break that down for us?
It sounds academic, but it's actually very grounded. Temporal honesty is just acknowledging that parenting is lived forward. You are positioned at the crossing point between now and later.
So you're never quite here.
You are here physically, but your consciousness is split. You are holding space for a future that is not yet secure. You are being honest about the fact that the current moment is fragile.
That sounds incredibly lonely.
It is. Mala explicitly calls out the loneliness of this state. It's often done in silence because it's hard to explain without sounding dramatic.
Right. If you say, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, people tell you to relax.
You worry too much. Exactly. So the waiting stays internal, which just adds to the weight. And what makes it even harder is that this waiting shapeshifts as the kid grows up.
Right. The essay notes that in the early years, it's constant and immediate. tied to physical safety, but later it becomes more diffuse.
It becomes harder to pin down. You're waiting for signs of well-being. Are they coping with school, with friends? Mala suggests this shift from intervention to watchfulness is actually the hardest adjustment.
Wait, harder? You'd think the physical years, the years where they were trying to fall downstairs, would be the hardest.
Physically, yes, but psychologically. The shift to watchfulness is brutal because there are fewer actions to take. When a baby cries, you pick them up. There is a solution.
But when a teenager is just quiet at the dinner table, what do you do?
You wait, you watch. And Mala writes that this waiting carries the sorrow of knowing that care does not grant control.
Oof, care does not grant control.
You have to adjust to the reality that you can't prevent everything. You are waiting for signs, but you are no longer the captain of the ship. You're just the lighthouse on the shore.
That is a tough pill to swallow. So if we can't stop waiting and it makes us exhausted, what is the point of analyzing all this? Are we just admiring the problem?
No, because recognition changes everything. Mulha argues that seeing waiting clearly changes how the load is held.
It's the difference between carrying a heavy backpack and knowing what's in it versus just feeling heavy and wondering what's wrong with you.
Exactly. It distinguishes necessary vigilance from the extra tension of being misunderstood. If you can name it, you can stop blaming yourself for being exhausted. You can realize, I'm not failing to be present. I am engaged in a form of care that operates quietly.
It redefines the whole experience. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
It is a feature of love.
Yeah.
There's this beautiful definition Mulha offers. Waiting is love stretched across time, held open without guarantee.
Love stretched across time. That is beautiful. It makes it sound purposeful.
It validates the experience. It says that this uneven experience of time is not core time management. It's the natural result of living in a state where the future of another person matters more to you than your own comfort.
But I have to ask the question every parent is thinking. Does it ever end? The essay seemed to have a bit of a reality check on that front.
It's a significant reality check. Mullet is clear that there is no point where a parent stops waiting entirely. Even when children leave home, the waiting doesn't vanish.
It just changes location.
Right. It goes from the next room to the next town. It becomes quieter. You wait for news, for visits, but it's still there.
So if it never ends, how do we find peace with it?
By recognizing it, we find steadiness. It's not about escaping the waiting, but meeting it with clarity. When you see it for what it is, you can stand within it without being consumed by it.
You know what you were carrying.
You remain watchful, you remain available, but you also know why. It settles into its proper place, not as an enemy of the present, but as one of the ways the present is held open for the future.
So let's recap. We started this deep dive thinking of waiting as standing in line, something annoying to get through. But through Pedro Malé's essay, we've come to see it as an active, protective stance.
A stance that absorbs risk and vulnerability for someone else.
We talked about how it physically changes you, that feeling of being slightly braced even when you're on the couch late at night. We talked about how it warps time.
And we discussed the evolution of it, from the physical safety of the early hours to the complex watchfulness of later years.
And ultimately, that this isn't a sign of failure, but the architecture of love itself. It's about staying connected to what matters across uncertainty. It's saying someone's existence is important enough to warrant attention that does not clock off.
Exactly.
So here is the takeaway I want you to carry with you. The next time you find yourself staring at the ceiling in the quiet of the night, or checking your phone for the 5th time, or just feeling that low-level hum of exhaustion, don't beat yourself up.
No, don't look at it as lost time.
Recognize it as the work itself.
And here is a thought I'd like to leave you with. If waiting is how we hold the present open for the future, then perhaps that exhaustion you feel isn't a sign that you're doing it wrong. Perhaps it is simply the physical weight of the love you're carrying. The question isn't how to put the weight down, but how to acknowledge that you are strong enough to carry it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.